Hey, what up, guys? It's Eddie with Kabuki Audio here. I just wanted to do a quick video today going over the processing that we did on the vocal in our girls template. So we'll just play it right now, first of all, with all this stuff going on in the track, so you can hear just in the context of the track.
I saw you look to him, and him look back at you. I felt the pain, I went insane, and knew there's not much I could do. I saw him look at me, but then I looked to you. Just grab my hand, he'll understand. This dance like 1992. Girls, don't need them bloody girls. 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 Don't need them bloody.
Okay, let's take a look now just at the lead vocal without the doubles, and we're going to look at it with processing on and processing off.
I saw him look at me, but then I looked to you. Just grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
All right, and processing off. Keep losing my mouse here.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
Okay, so right off the bat, you can you'll notice that it's pretty stylized. It sounds a little bit tinny. It sounds like there's almost a telephone type effect on it. It's not the typical pop processing that you would do on like a lead vocal or just clean processing, just pushing it to the front and making and adding reverb and making it sound nice and clean. There's a specific effect. In case you couldn't tell, this track is based off of Dom Dolla's track Girls, and there's a very specific sound and effect that they're going for in that vocal, and we're trying to replicate that. So let's get into the processing here and take a look at what's actually being done. Starting right off the bat, we have a de-esser. As the name implies the de-esser is going to take away the S's. It's going to take away the sibilants that you find in a lot of vocals. You'll usually see a de-esser on every vocal chain. It might not be a de-esser like this. It could be a Pro Q3, or now they have Pro Q4, or it could be a soothe. It's going to be something that's dynamically taking out those harsh frequencies where the S's lie. You want to do this early on, and you want to carve out unwanted frequencies in your sounds and in your vocals early on, because when you hit compression and saturation, those unwanted frequencies that you have, they're going to become more of a problem. They're going to get more and more pronounced. Do this typically early on in the channel. It doesn't have to be the very first thing, but we knew that we were going to use a de-esser, so we slapped it on here. All right, next up, we have an EQ. This EQ really isn't doing much. It's mostly a control thing. It's mostly a safety thing.
I saw him look at me, but then I looked to you.
It's just getting rid of these lows. You can't really hear them right now.
I saw him look at me.
It's not really doing anything to the sound. It's just getting rid of those lows. Compression and saturation can bring up these lows, and they can hit compressors and saturators and effects in ways that you don't really want them to. So it's just a safety thing more than anything. And then we're starting to boost up the highs a little bit here.
I saw him look at me, but then I looked to you. Just grab my hand, he'll...
Okay, subtle, but we're starting to build towards the sound that we want. Next, we have a compressor here.
I saw him look at me, but then I...
Which isn't actually really doing anything. It's taking away like 0.2 to 0.4.
I saw him look at me, but then I...
dBs. It's barely doing anything. The thought process with this, I think this was kind of put on just out of habit. But the thought process, usually you would want to compress early on in the chain to catch peaks in your vocal. When someone records a vocal, if it doesn't have a hardware compressor you're running it through, or you're not running it right through a chain immediately when you're recording it, there will be a lot of words that jump out. When someone really pronunciates a sound and they put a lot of emphasis on something, you're going to have some words that are a lot louder than others. And that'll give you hell when you're mixing and you're putting a chain on things, because certain sounds will trigger effects when you don't want them to. It's also alarming for the listener to have words just jump out at them when they're not expecting it. And It's just this uneven listening experience. So that's what this should be doing. It's not really doing anything. It's just adding some volume right now. Next up, we have this group that is adding all of our effects. Our spatial effects. So our reverb and our delays. We're doing it early on in the mix, in the chain. Sometimes you want to do it a lot later. Again, this is a very stylized vocal. So doing it this early in the chain is kind of what we want. We want to be processing the effects with our saturation and our compression that we're adding. And it's just going to be bringing those out more and emphasizing those effects more. So starting off, you can do this by grouping these chains together and adding new chains that you add these effects onto, or you can add a return track, okay, and do this a similar way and just send volume here, and it'll essentially split off the channel into two channels. This is just a workflow thing. I prefer to do it this way. It's faster for me. And also, like I said, I can process all this stuff together very easily. We have this dry chain.
I saw him look at me, but then I looked to you.
All it is the dry, it's a channel up until here. Next, we have a delay.
I saw him look at me, but then I looked to you.
This is a very specific effect we're going for, right? It's kind of a metallic, robotic delay sound that we're adding here.
I saw him look at me, but then I looked to you.
Next in the chain here, we have a reverb.
I saw him look at me, but then I looked to you.
Just putting it in a space, just beginning to put it in some sort of space, giving it some depth and giving it some life here.
I saw him look at me, but then I looked to you.
Again, just a longer delay that, again, putting it in a space and giving some additional movement. And then here,
I saw him look at me, but then I looked to you. Just grab my...
we have a very short ping pong delay with no feedback. This is essentially adding a doubling effect, and it'll add some width when we mix it into the dry vocal here.
I saw him look at me, but then I looked to you. Just grab my hand and he'll understand, and it stands like 1992.
It's low in the mix, but added with everything, it's just going to make the vocal sound a little bit wider. And so we'll play it with everything and without.
I saw him look at me, but then I looked to you. Just grab my hand and he'll understand, and it stands like 1992.
So this, in my opinion, is where the life starts to be given to the vocal. Spatial effects are so important for putting your vocal in a space. Your vocal or whatever sound you use in your mixing, just actually putting it in some type of space. Moving on, we have a saturator here.
I saw him look at me, but then I looked to you.
So the saturator is pretty heavy. It's a very hard saturation, but it's a very, very low dry wet. So it's just barely being added, but especially with a saturation this heavy, you can still hear it.
I saw him look at me, but then I looked to you. Just grab my hand and he'll understand it.
Off
Grab my hand and he'll understand, and it stands like 1992.
and on.
Grab my hand and he'll understand, and it stands like 1992.
Okay, so you can hear there's just a little bit of fuzziness that it's adding to the top. It's starting to add a little bit of grit that we want with this vocal.
Grab my hand and he'll understand, and it stands like 1992.
It's on hard curve. Typically, when you load it up, it'll be on analog clip. This is on the hard curve. It's a very hard saturation. You only need a little bit. Now we have another EQ.
Grab my hand and he'll understand, and it stands like 1990.
Again, you'll see this a lot. It's just taking out some of those lows. But this one is also scooping out some of the low mids. For the sound that we're going for, we don't want a lot of low mids here. And the saturation and compression is adding a little bit of, it can add a little bit of boominess there that we don't want.
Grab my hand and he'll understand, and it stands like 1992. Grab my hand and he'll understand, and it stands like 1992.
It's just not what we want for this vocal. So we're just scooping out a little bit of that. Next, we have everyone's favorite, OTT.
Grab my hand and he'll understand, and it stands like 1992.
So OTT is a multi-band compressor. That just means it's compressing different frequency bands separately. We have, it's compressing 2.5 and up, 2.5 kilohertz and up, and then between 2.5 kilohertz and 88.3 hertz. That's its next band, and then 88.3 and down. So one of the things that makes OTT OTT is it's not just compressing, it's also doing upwards compression. And maybe we can get it into upwards compression at a later video, but it's going to be pushing up. It's going to be essentially very, very quiet things that are in your sound and your vocal. It's going to be pushing those up a lot. So this is just added to kind of push the vocal forward a little bit more, and to kind of emphasize the high end that we've added to the set by adding the saturator here.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
So just in my opinion, OTT you can mostly hear on top end of a sound. So just listen to the top end.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992. Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
So it just brings up the top end a little bit more. And also does some nice compression to the rest of the vocal. And it's on a pretty small amount. Again, we're doing things in little pieces. I find that in my workflow and my preference, I like to do things, I think things sound better when you do like adding little effects here and there to build up to a sound, rather than just trying to achieve one sound right away with one big change. And then we have a compressor here.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
Now this compressor is doing what the first compressor was supposed to be doing. And this compressor, you can see,
grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
It's removing a lot. It's removing like -6 dB of the peaks. So we have it on a 5:1 ratio. That's a pretty heavy ratio for compression, and a very, very fast attack. So we're squashing down the peaks and then raising everything up, turning the volume up on everything. And that helps us perceive this sound as being louder and bring it to the front more. You can see, you can hear, especially if you close your eyes and you listen to me turn it on and off, you'll hear it kind of gets, you can imagine that it's kind of bringing the vocal to the front a little bit more.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992. Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
And that's what we want. We want the vocal to be pretty present. And then lastly, again, just a safety thing.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
See, lows have been added back from saturation and everything.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
So we're just taking them out. And then adding a little EQ bump here at the top end. It's not doing that much, but you know, it's doing enough.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992. Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
Just making it a little bit brighter. Okay, so that's it for the processing just on this channel itself. And it's also the processing that we have on the left and right doubled channels here, which we'll go over in a little bit. Now let's move on to the processing that we have. Man, I've said that word so many times, it's starting to sound so weird in my mouth. So we'll go on to the group processing that we have here. First of all, this EQ. Now we can see it's not just a safety thing. This is kind of going for a tone that we want. We're taking out a little bit more of the lows than you've seen previously.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
Kind of scratch what I said. It's not that much more. It might not even be more at all. But what we are doing is we're scooping out the low mids here.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
So we're scooping out the low mids, we're turning up the highs a little bit. This is giving it kind of a little bit of a telephony effect. It's almost a little bit lo-fi. Again, it's just emphasizing that sound that we can hear in the original Girls track.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
So it's taking out some of the boominess and some of the body, and yeah, I think it sounds kind of nice.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this.
Next is a reverb, not really doing much. It's on a very low, dry, wet.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
Just further putting it in a space. Here we have this is just a vocal throw. It's not doing anything to the overall tone, but we'll go over it. So here, it's just triggering this delay. It's saying, you know, when we get to this point, this delay is going to go on. And it's just going to throw the vocal. Well, let's listen to it in the context of the track. Because we just want it on that part just to kind of get a certain effect. This next reverb is, you know, a similar situation. It's just automating over here. Just washing it out before the drop. Here, it's actually, we can see it's being automated on and off. I actually don't remember what this is doing. It's just filtering up, and it's washed out for the effect that we're going for in this part of the track specifically. All right, so we have this multi-band dynamics again. Not sure if I mentioned, and if you're new to Ableton, this might look familiar to you, and it's because the OTT that we looked at earlier, the OTT is a preset, an Ableton built-in preset of the multi-band dynamics tool. If we see here, multi-band dynamics, OTT. This multi-band compressor, all it's doing here is we're telling it the frequencies that are in between 3 kilohertz and 10 kilohertz, we want to just bring those down a little bit when they hit this threshold. It's pretty subtle here.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992. Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance.
It's just kind of controlling it a little bit more in that range. It's bringing the volume down a little bit, very subtle, but you know, it's still building on the effect that we want.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
And then finally, we have an EQ here.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance.
Just further doing safety, you can see here there aren't even really any lows to take out.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1990.
But we're doing it anyway, just in case. Then boosting up the high mids a little bit here.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
Okay, and then the last thing that we need to go over for this vocal, let me just make sure there's nothing else. The last thing that we need to go over now is the doubled vocals on the left and right that are hard pan left, hard pan right. So these are exactly the same as the lead vocal. However, they are each being detuned slightly. So this one is being detuned 17 cents up. The one on the right is being detuned 21 cents down. If you weren't to do this and you just had, here, let me show you. If you just had both of the vocals pan hard left and hard right, they would just sum together.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 19.
Back into mono, and it would just be a volume difference really. But we have this detuning going on, and with them pan left and right, you get this nice kind of detuning chorusy sound.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
And it makes it wider, because essentially what stereo is a difference going on in the left and the right channel.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance.
And we're creating that difference via detuning it, so it's just slightly different. And then we sum that together with, don't sum that together, we play that together with the main lead vocal.
Grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
And yeah, we just get this nice, it's a nice sounding effect here. Without it,
grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
With it,
grab my hand, he'll understand in this dance like 1992.
So it's a very specific sound, but it works nicely for this style and this track, and it's what we were going for. And that's it. You can find this template, the full template, on kabukiaudio.com. It has the vocal chain, of course, and then it has all of the drums laid out in audio. It has all of the presets for the rest of the sounds in the track with the MIDI. I hope that you're able to get a lot out of it. This template is great for anyone if you are just starting out making tech house and you need a quick primer, and you want to just quickly understand the layout of tech house, understand how the drums are made, the processing that goes on, or you want to sound very specifically, you want a track that sounds very specifically like this girl's track. This is great for you if you want to use this template basically just as a sample pack and just take all the sounds and use that. That's fine too. Or if you're completely new to production and you don't even know where to begin with song structure, this can be a great tool for you to just go in, reverse engineer things, see how a song is laid out, see how drums are processed, see how vocals are processed, and just start to really dive into production. Again, hope that you guys get some value out of this and that the video was helpful. Thanks.